Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're under 45, you probably didn't understand that music, nor did you have a connection to it, but it's okay. For us old school heads, that made us feel pretty good there. So, welcome everybody. This is Philip T. Smith Saboide, and welcome to the GRITS podcast. This is our first podcast. Um, so, hopefully, we'll have a lot of fun doing this. I've been wanting to do this for about the last 2 or 3 years and have some great conversations. Over the last 5 or 6 years, I've had a chance to meet some incredible people. And a lot of times when I'm meeting these folks, our conversation goes in many directions. And I know a lot of folks out there like to talk a lot about different things. You like to talk about sports. You like to talk about relationships, racism, politics, cars, clothes, whatever the case may be. And this is hopefully the start of something really, really nice. I'm starting from scratch, and hopefully the podcast will catch fire and everybody can join in. But I'm excited. I hope you're excited as well. Tell all of your friends. I want you to like and subscribe it. If you do like it, don't like it for the sake of liking it. Like it if you really enjoy the conversation tonight that I put forth. And hopefully I can do it with some intelligence and some class and hopefully something a little original in terms of my perspective. So with that, I'll say hello again. And thanks for joining me. Let me adjust this thing. Make sure can everybody hear me? I hope so. Thanks for joining me today and starting this weekly podcast to open to the general public. It's a great day. We're going to have a lot of fun and keep the conversation moving. House rules are simple. There are no rules except for respect and decency. If you want to curse, try to keep it to a minimum. I'm not going to act like a censor up here, but let's try to be respectful of everybody that's listening. If you really have some brain power between the ears, you can talk effectively without cursing. That's my take on it anyway, for the most part. Tell your family, friends, co-workers, relatives about the show. It's going to be really exciting, and hopefully we can, as I said before, get some traction. Now, changing over to the question of the week, the month, the year, and unfortunately this moment, the question is, should teachers be allowed nationwide to carry guns on school grounds and specifically the classrooms? Shootings are no longer a rare observation happening in some far-off place in America. Violence is at the door of all of us in America. We can no longer move away to some middle-class utopia or some rural safe haven, or worse, try to ignore it. It is here permanently, and America is officially a violent place. Just like some of those foreign countries we have seen over the years on TV, where we were so far removed from it, we thought it was just part of our regular programming. But now we are in that programming. And unfortunately, my heart goes out to these folks. Just 2 days ago, in fact, 2 people were killed in the last school shooting. A former student came into the school, forced his way in, shot several people and killed 2 people. And it was at the Central Visual and Performing Arts High School in St. Louis. And it was just, it's horrible. So the question becomes, what do we do? How do we protect ourselves? And more importantly, how do we protect our children that are in these institutions all day long for 8, 9, 10 hours a day? They need to be protected. They need to feel as if they can sit there and not have to worry about somebody coming through the door and putting a bullet in their head. I'm biased. I have no illusions about who I am as a person. I'm a father first and foremost, as well as a husband. My job is to protect my family at all costs, even if it puts me in harm's way. I would gladly take a bullet for my children, but that's just me. I can't speak for you, nor will I try. When our kids go to school, we are handing them over and expect them to be protected at all times. Teachers are the first people that we meet on the opening day of school. They give you a good overview of what they're going to do, how they teach, a little insight into who they are as a person and what your child is expected to do and perform throughout the year. I have no problem that a teacher would have a gun and is capable of defending my child if a shooter or active shooter situation came up. That's just my perspective. That's what I believe. What do you believe? I don't think sitting back and doing nothing and praying to the mountains and skies above that things are going to get better is going to do anything, because things are exponentially getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And we need to take our head out of the sand and realize that we are in an area, a country that has some violent folks who are intent on evil. They're in pain and they want you to be in pain. And the way they convey that pain is by killing folks, and taking their lives. So we have to do something. We can't sit back. The old formula of just ignoring it no longer applies. So what are we going to do, folks? What are we going to do in terms of building a strategy that works nationwide for all of our schools? Now, I know we can't have one school uh, structure that works in every situation, but we need to have a spectrum of choices some schools might have for them if their kids are in danger. And in most cases, well, I'm going to backtrack. In all cases, our kids are in danger nowadays. We have to assume they're worse. Now, some quick facts. I'll read some quick facts to you. Currently, 29 states have allowed individuals other than police to officially carry on school grounds. As of right now, Ohio and Louisiana are considering this option for their teachers. And I think you'll need eight hours minimum with a maximum up to 24 hours training prior to you being allowed to take that gun in the school. A lot of law enforcement officials and politicians in the Ohio area are upset and are pushing back on the law, thinking that it was not going to be a good thing. They believe that having a teacher in the classroom with a gun is going to put those children in harm's way a lot more than not. So that is their perspective. As of 2018, has been estimated that 2.6% of public schools have been having armed faculty. I was unaware of that. In Florida, more than 1,300 school staff members serve as armed guards in 45 school districts out of 74. That's more than half in the state of Florida. The program was created after a gunman killed 17 people at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. And I think everybody remembers the Parkland shooting in 2018. As you know, folks, this is only getting worse. It's not getting better. So let's sit down and have a conversation with each other. If you have a thought, a process, or an opinion about it, what do you think we should do? I think we have to be proactive. As I said before, I think we need to look at just the reality of the situation. And I want to say this: I'm not a gloom and doom guy. I really try to be half full. The glass is half full as opposed to half empty. But it is apparent to me that we are looking at situations that go far beyond just somebody being angry. These kids and these men and women that are going out killing folks have deep-rooted mental problems. They have emotional problems. They have racist tendencies in a lot of cases that I've seen, based on some of the feedback that law enforcement is giving us. And we need to do something. Now, I'm gonna give you some of my options and my little crazy mind, which I think you might like or might not like. Just tell me either way. It really doesn't matter. How about all the teachers having the option to carry a gun? How about that? Let them decide if they want to carry a gun, but let it be a legal option for them. Don't tell them they can't protect themselves. What I just don't understand, and it just amazes me that when I hear some of these active shooter situations, and you hear it again and again and again, the teacher barricades him or herself in the classroom, tells all the kids to get underneath their desks or in a corner and hover down. And time again, the shooter bangs his or her way into the school, mostly men doing this, and then just slaughtering those kids in that classroom. I fail to see the logic behind that. If the last thing, and I'm going to assume my child is in that classroom that's being attacked, what I would hope, what I would pray for is that teacher had a gun in his or her hands, preferably more than one. It was loaded, locked and loaded and ready to shoot. Because as that shooter comes into the room and they're going to get some shooting some bullets sent back to them, they at least have to negotiate that. They have to at least back up for a minute or so, or permanently leave that room because they know they're going to get some business if they go in that classroom. If the teacher is the last stand, if the teacher is the last person there, why not allow him or her to protect those kids? And make it, maybe maybe I'm too old. I'm 64, so Lord have mercy, I come from a different generation. But in my generation, we use common sense. And common sense to me says if you're in a classroom and you're a teacher and somebody's bursting in that classroom, standing up and trying to shield those kids will do absolutely nothing but get you shot first. And then they're going to go on a rampage and slaughter everybody in that room. Why not give that teacher something to have in his or her hand to battle with that particular shooter? That's my mindset. Now, I'm not a macho guy. I don't go around trying to act like I'm a tough guy. I'm a little guy and I'm quiet and I mind my own business. So this is not coming from a place of machoism or some, craziness like that. I just believe that we need to look at the situations for what they are. And they're not comfortable. They're not easy discussions. They're not. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. The perfect situation would be for kids to go to school unharmed and to live in to study in a very utopian type of environment. But that's just not the reality of America. We have a lot of evil people in society. That I hate to say, but that's the truth. They're very evil. They want to cause harm. They want to just really just destroy everything in front of them. And the key is they want you to be in pain. They want you to feel that anger, whatever it might be. It might be racism in terms of anger. It might be some form of mental illness, but whatever it is, they want to go out and shoot you to make you feel that pain. Now, I'm getting a couple of comments in the section. I got one, totally agree. Cool. One gentleman says, training in a static firing range is a small part. To use the use of force and deadly force is necessary alone with dynamic engagement. Now, I don't know exactly what he's saying, but I think, let me kind of read between the lines. I think he's saying that shooting in a stagnant line at the range is a lot different when you're engaging someone trying to use deadly force to kill him. And if that's the case, then I certainly agree. Sitting down and being still and shooting in a very cool, nicely air-conditioned range will not, I think, get you fully prepared for being able to protect children. You need to have advanced training continually, ongoing, to be able to protect yourself fully or have a chance. It doesn't guarantee anything. Having a gun doesn't guarantee you anything, but it does allow you to have a chance. And sometimes a little bit of a chance is better than no chance at all. And certainly that's my mindset behind arming the teachers. Now, another comment is, relative to your topic for discussion, training is critical. However, the perimeter needs to be secured. That's I'm gonna go back to that. However, if breach trained, teachers are our best defense. Let's talk about that for a minute. If you're talking about a perimeter around the school, what does that look like? And I'm not a military person, and I'm not a law enforcement, but I know a lot of law enforcement. I know a lot of SWAT guys and military that know how to really structure a safe and secure perimeter around a building or a home. That needs to be done because apparently this guy that came in and shot everybody, he pushed his way in and was able to breach that door and get in. That never should have happened. That never should be allowed if the proper security was up. I don't know. They said they had security guards there. I'm going by second and third commentary and feedback, but if that's the case, then we need to really talk, and they need to re-strategize on how that perimeter security looks. But I believe it should look something like this. If you drive up to a school and you're parking your car and you're a parent, you should, before you get to that school, you should see some level of armed guards with guns openly in a nice, very positive way. Those guards should be very, very accommodating, being smiling, letting the kids know that they're on their side. They're there to protect them. Very, very calming influence as kids enter the school, so they can definitely feel comfortable. Their level of anxiety would go down as they come in. Now, once they get through that door, there should be another level of security. And these security guards should be clothed. They should be concealed carry. That's what needs to take place. That's what needs to happen in terms of another level of security. And third but not least, yes, in each classroom, the teacher should have guns. So that, in my mind, and I'm not a strategic guy, but if you have armed guards outside, strategically placed, and once you get into school, you have concealed, clothed, armed police officers or law enforcement or hired personnel, security personnel, walking the hallways in a very calm, very unassuming way, but everyone knows they're there to protect them. And in addition to that, you have another layer of kids that are, teachers that have guns. To me, that's a much better format for success, as opposed to just sitting back and going, you know what? we're not going to do anything. We're just going to hope for the best. We might lock a door here or there. And we live in a really safe neighborhood. We've never had stuff like that happen. Even though Johnny down the street has severe mental illness, and they took his guns away from his parents last week, but we're still okay. I think we're okay. We're not in the position to think. We have to know without a question that if Johnny, who's crazy down the street, attacks that school, he will be met with deadly force, and that threat will be neutralized on the spot. I got another comment, and this is a great point. Teachers have so much on their plates to deliver an education to our youth. I don't see how they can do both effectively. And if only some teachers are armed, it doesn't solve the issue. That's a very good point. If only a few teachers are armed or want to be armed, is that school really safe for all the students? That's a great question. Let's think about that for a moment. Let's say you have 20 classrooms in this particular elementary school, and only 5 of the teachers have guns. Is that a safe school? I would argue, I might have to agree with the comment that the school isn't fully protected. Some classrooms individually might be protected, but I really don't think the school itself would be fully protected. Now, based on my plan, which would have security guards outside strategically placed, and once you came into the school, you had security personnel are clothed policemen walking the halls. That's a much better scenario, as opposed to just a few teachers raise their hand and say, you know what, I used to shoot a lot. I'm an ex-military, so I'll have a gun for my kids in my room. Or a couple other people saying, I shot as a kid. I'm from the country. I'm used to having a gun. I'll put a gun on myself. That to me, that's not a totally effective plan. And I kind of agree with that comment made by Mr. Collin on the total school being protected from a strategic standpoint. Also, if we can lock down a prison, we can lock down a school building. If the attacker can't access any rooms, they can be neutralized in the hallways. I fully agree with that statement. Have you ever seen these movies when they lock down a prison? They do it in a matter of seconds. And I mean seconds. Those doors go shut. Those prison guards pop out. There's no movement. They're in the hallway. They're in the around the building, outside and in, and it's locked down. A matter of seconds. So why can't we do that kind of scenario for our schools, where if some type of siren goes off or alarm that there is a active shooter either in the school or going toward the school on the perimeter, why can't we have a very fast reaction to lock down a school in a matter of seconds? To me, that makes sense. It makes sense. And to me, it's a matter of priorities. Let's put it that way. And I'm not here to poo-poo on anybody, but if you are truly concerned about kids in 2022, you have to consider this thing if you are a school administrator. You cannot sit back and say it's going to be fine, because you know what? It's not going to be fine. Um, Another comment, and this is just one. Unfortunately, a well-planned attack will occur between classes, and that might be right. I mean, that sound like you might have military background. You understand strategy, and when chaos is more prevalent, or possibly prevalent. And that's a very common as well. I do think if we had some administrators with some heart, with some guts, they would have a much better opportunity to really speak their truth about what they really want to do. And because I'm not a teacher, I'm a parent. But as a parent, I have a perspective that is unbiased in that I think the teachers need to have guns. Now, an administrator might say something totally different, saying, "Phil, you just don't understand the danger of having a gun in the classroom. Student might overpower a teacher and shoot all the students up in the class." Is that possible? Okay, that's possible. Is it probable? Probably not. I would give that a negative. Um, but we have to do something. What is really troubling to me, and I come from Cali, California, and I lived in a nice little, not a nice little area, it was, blue collar, or what we call no collar, Vallejo, California, South Side, a little poor area. And I'm sure millions of folks have had that same experience that I've had. Poor neighborhood, you don't have much, but you kind of rally against each other. And on occasion, we would go over to Oakland, California, and that was a big city over there. And they had some much rougher neighborhoods where you go into the school, they had scanners, they were wanding kids. They had no shootings in those schools. Now outside the school and late at night, of course, they had a lot of shootings in Oakland. But you walk in some of these schools in Oakland, California, or in some of these big cities in Chicago, New York, LA, before you even walk into school, they're gonna have security guards right there that are going to make you put your backpack through, just like going to the TSA at the airport. They're gonna know everything that you have on you. You're gonna get wanded, and before you can take one step on that school floor, they're gonna know who you are. So we need to be honest. I think the schools in the urban areas are light years away, are ahead of schools in some of these suburbs and rural areas. That I'll be honest, because when I was coming up, they had that back in the day. That's back in the 70s and 80s. These schools had ways to protect these kids, and it wasn't so much they were looking for active shooters. They were trying to stop gang violence. They were trying to stop drug dealers from coming in there and beating folks up. They were trying to stop, you know, multiple fights throughout the day with certain kids that had graduated or dropped out, and they were trying to get retribution. That's why you had that in some of these inner city schools. But it did prevent them from really stopping a lot of active shooters. So I think we need to look at the blueprint of success of some of these inner city schools, which haven't had any type of school shooting within the school for years, because they have a definite, structured, organized, militaristic way of securing that school, and they are unapologetic about it. In some cases, they lock the doors with heavy chains. They have security outside those doors, and on the outside of those doors, in the inside. So they're very, very good at looking at things for what they are. I got another comment. The fact that a perp knows that there are guns in the school he or she will select a different target. I added that in. Unfortunately, in New York State, no one is allowed to enter a school with a firearm. Let me read that again. The fact that a perp knows that there are schools in the school will select a different target. I think what you're saying is that if a person who's intent on shooting some folks in school knows that all the schools or that particular school they're looking at as a potential target, will make them select a different target. I agree with that 100%. I know you guys heard of the term soft target and hard target. And that's a term that some folks use in the firearms industry and also the military and law enforcement. A soft target is a target, and just for those who do not know, A soft target is a person or a thing that is acting like they are unaware um, of the dangers that are around them. I'll put it that way. And that's my definition. I don't know if it's completely right, but to me, that's what it means. You just don't know what's going on. You're walking down late at night. You got your keys and you're looking down at your keys and you're walking to your car. You should be looking up and looking around. You never see these 4 or 5 guys hanging out just looking at you because you're too busy looking at your keys or your purse. That's someone who's a soft target. They're unaware of what's going on. And that's how you get robbed. That's how you get shot. That's how you get killed. A hard target is someone or an institution or a group that is aware of their surroundings. They're aware of the dangers of this particular area. They've done their research. They're not fanatical about it. They're not going around shaking and shivering and looking in, like any moment now the world is going to end. But what they are doing is that they are taking preparation, and they have taken preparation. So when they walk outside into their car late at night in the parking lot, they have the key of their car in their hand already, and they're looking up and around as they walk. If they're concealed carrying, and I hope they are, because I'm a big concealed carry guy. I believe everybody, especially every Black person in America, should conceal carry. They have that gun right there, ready to rock and roll if somebody bothers them. But they're aware. That's someone who's a hard target. I'm not saying you're not gonna get them, because you may get them, but you're gonna have to bring your lunch. You're gonna have to do some real maneuvering if you want to stop and stop this person from living or take something from them. So let's try to change our mindset. And I've spoken about this previously in other areas. Let's change our mindset and not be afraid to say, you know what? I want to be a hard target. I want my family to be hard targets. I want my house to be a hard target. And for this conversation, I want my school to be a hard target. I want my church to be a hard target, for that matter. I want my mosque or my temple to be a hard target. I want where I work to be a hard target. Has anyone ever tried to walk into the Federal Reserve or a federal building lately and have a gun on you? They will stop you at the door, arrest you, tie you up like a knot, and send you on your way. Because you know why? They are a hard target. It is not by coincidence that you don't see some of these folks trying to attack a federal building. You don't see any lone shooters walking up to some of these federal institutions or federal buildings with a lone rifle, knowing that they're facing probably 15, 20 guys with guns that know how to use them, I want to emphasize, and they will mow you down. Those are hard targets. And they're hard targets unapologetically. That's what we need to do. I mean, I got a couple more good comments. A school in New York is a gun-free zone. I agree with you, brother or sister, whoever that is. I agree. And there's another comment. A school in New York City is said to be a gun-free zone. So Mr. Map is great. Is good with his commentary as always. I love my brother. I love my brother. Except January 6th. Oh, Colin, you're on fire tonight, brother. You're on fire. You're on fire, man. Now, I got a question. I'm gonna ask everybody. This is I'm gonna kind of divert it, but divert the conversation. Is January 6th an example? When I say January 6th, we're all talking about the attack on the Capitol. Is that an example of a hard target, or is that an example of a soft target? Inquiring minds would like to know. What do you guys think? Soft target, hard target. Was the Capitol a hard target that day, or was it a soft target? Let's think about that. What is what's his name? Arsenio go. I say they thought they were a hard target, but to come to find out, they were the ultimate soft target. Those folks walked in there, and I'm not trying to get political. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about the physical facts of what happened. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. I could give a shit. Excuse my English. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, ask yourself the question: the capital of the United States of America, was it a soft target on January 6th, or was it a hard target? I argue it was a soft target that looked like a hard target. because those folks walked through there like they were at Starbucks taking a nice, easy breeze conversation, stroll in the park, and they went all the way into that building. So looking like a hard target and actually being a hard target are two different things. Now, I want to kind of change the trajectory and ask some other, I'll bring up some other topics I think related to shootings that are very, very important. Have you guys noticed the neighborhoods, the communities, the folks that are having very secure areas of where they live have guns? Here in Atlanta, let's take Lenox Mall. I went there today. Lenox Mall is having some troubles with shootings. I walked through there this morning and I thought I was in Fort Knox. They had police on every level coming out of all the stores. They had security guards. They had security walking through the parking lot. It was the most safe place in the world, I thought, for the moment. It was incredible. Now, Lenox Mall, I'll say this, used to be a soft target. And that's why people went up there to act a fool. They have shootings, they have fights in the mall. It was just, a wild, wild west. But luckily, the management of Lenox Mall, the folks that run that facility and manage that building, realize they have too much money in that area, too many very important clients and stores that will leave and go to somewhere else very, very quickly if you guys don't get a hold of it. So what they did, they militarized in a very subtle way Lenox Mall. Go there tomorrow. If you're in the Atlanta, Georgia area, go to Lenox Mall tomorrow and just take a stroll. There are security guards all over the place now. And I mean all over the place. In the parking lot, walking up and down the aisles, walking up and down the street, surrounding the Lenox Mall. If you walk in the stores, they're going through the stores. They're going down the aisles and up the escalators and down the escalators. They're sitting around, looking, talking, just keeping a good observation over everything. And it's extremely peaceful and safe. And the question, that's a great question I see. Did I feel safer? I did. That might have been an illusion, but I had a security guard right here who had a gun. I see a city of Atlanta policeman right here, and this is within feet, 50 feet this way, 50 feet that way, a couple of guards behind me. I'm walking into a store. It didn't bother me. Wasn't doing anything wrong, so I was just taking care of my business. But I know that was from what has been happening in that facility, that building, for a number of years, and they just had enough. They say, you know what? This is one of the most expensive areas in the city. We have high income individuals, and they're not going to take it. And so they're doing something about it, and they're changing that narrative real quick. I'm telling you, very quickly. There's also neighborhoods in this area. I'm using Metro Atlanta because that's where I live. That's a good area to use as an example. In certain neighborhoods, if you go in and act a fool, if you do anything out of the ordinary, you're going to get stopped, you're going to get questioned, and more than likely, if you're not there for a reason or a purpose, or you just happen to be driving around, they're going to ask you to leave quickly, because those communities understand that having guns allows them to have a safer environment for their kids, for their property values, for security overall. And this is the mindset that we need to do as a people. And I think that's really, really important, and not be apologetic about it again. Feeling safe is something that Black folks, and I'm going to go to the race card because it's my show, and I'm gonna do it because I want to. Being safe is a luxury a lot of Black people in this country haven't felt a lot over the years. At times we have, but for the most part, we are on guard automatically, because that's just what we have to do. We have to negotiate a lot of the things that we have to deal with. So that mindset needs to definitely be pushed out a little more in our community. Now, another statement: should our schools have an atmosphere that's militarized? Is that an environment that's conducive to learning? I'll say this, Mr. Collin, I think you're onto something. I know when I went to school, now let's all of us go back to when we were in high school. When I went to high school, I didn't see any security guards. I didn't. I saw some mean teachers that needed to be military guards, but I didn't see um, anybody that was that had a gun. Never saw that. That was school was a safe place. It's a place where you learned, where you flirted with girls. You might. When back in my day, all I wanted to do was have a gigantic fro that looked like Michael Jackson. I wanted it to be perfect, nice and smooth and round. That was the goal. Obviously, I didn't make it, as y'all can tell, but I wanted to. That was the only thing I worried about. Nowadays, when a kid goes into school, they might have to see that militarization, as Mr. Mapp is alluding to. They might have to see a security guard or two as they walk into the building, and that's for the safety of all the kids. I think that's what needs to be. Now, that's an argument we could have. I know my wife, who I love very, very much, she doesn't believe it. She does. In no circumstance should there be guns on a campus. Period. Elementary school, middle school, high school, guns should not be there. To her word and to Mr. Mapp's word, it isn't conducive to learning. To her, kids get nervous. They have relationships, particularly African American kids and males, especially males, have sometimes a confrontational relationship with law enforcement, and they get nervous. Their mind isn't on the lecture. They're looking at the law enforcement officer keep walking back and forth down the halls. So that's a legitimate argument. That's a discussion that we could have. Um, I just believe if we do it in the right way, will it infringe on that peaceful, heaven-like safe haven? A little bit, but I rather have a little bit of uncomfort or questions on why do we have security guards on the outside and the inside of the building, um, and have safe kids and have safe teachers, as opposed to not having any guns at all. I think that is, by and large, again, putting us as a soft target. And I'm just tired of our folks being soft targets. What comes to mind is Tops Market in Buffalo, when that shooter came in and purposely stalked and did his reconnaissance on those black areas, and in that black area in Buffalo where black folks went about and shot them. That was horrible. But I also know that particular store did not have a high level of security. It didn't have a lot of the things that we're talking about now. And I'm just of the mindset, as of right now, if you go to church, your church needs to be protected. Your pastor needs to sit back and say, y'all, we're gonna have church today, but just to let you know, if somebody acts a fool, we gonna handle you. We're gonna take care of it. We got people here ready to go rock and roll on the inside and the out. If you go to work, federal facility, private company, that company needs to have certain layers of protection for those people working in that building. That's just the reality in which we face. When you stop thinking that way, that's when bad things happen. If you're going to your mosque, if you're going to your temple, you need to have security. We are no longer allowed uh, to be um, unknowledgeable about what's going on in the world, because you'll get punished, and you'll get punished in a most horrible way by getting shot. It's like I use this as an example. If you're going to um, a rough area of town, what do? You get fully aware. You kind of tighten yourself up. You look around. You make sure you've got your stuff together. If you have a gun, you can still carry. You make sure your car's locked. You sure you park in a lighted area. You don't want to go to a gas station where a whole bunch of guys are hanging out. You'll pass that up. You are fully engaged. That's what we need to do for all of our institutions, be it educational institutions, religious institutions, private institution, companies. The world has got to protect itself now, because we have a lot of folks out there that are just straight out evil. And that needs to be just acknowledged, unfortunately. It's not right, but it needs to be acknowledged. Another comment, if the schools are fortified from kindergarten, the students will get used to it. And I would agree with that as well. Kids are very, very impressionable, and meaning that If they see something and they are told what it's for, and it's done in a very positive, reassuring, nurturing way. Hi, this is Officer Philip. He's a nice guy. And I'm Officer Philip. I shake your hands. I make you feel comfortable. I let them know I'm here to protect you because I love you guys. I want you safe. I think that's a very, very good way to start off kids in kindergarten on up, all the way to high school. Because bottom line, they're all kids. They think they're adults when they're, especially when they're in high school, but they're not. They haven't been through anything, and they don't really know enough out there. They know enough to get themselves in trouble, but that's about it. But I agree. If we incorporate it and slowly roll out these certain levels of security in a very positive way, that would allow those kids to um, get used to it to a certain degree. I'm not going to say it's going to be um, totally comfortable because some kids just won't like it. Period. I mean, but for the greater good, I think it's a good thing. Now, I know that a lot of us are pro-gun and some of us are anti-gun that are on the channel now. I'm pro-gun, as you guys know. I just believe that we are much better off with a gun as opposed to not having a gun. And I think it's my right to have that gun at all times to protect myself. And I understand people, and I'm not saying they're bad people, have a totally different view. They just believe that guns are just not the answer, and that's cool. That's cool. You do you. I mean, but don't prevent me from doing me. Don't prevent me from having a AR or a gun to protect my family in cases of somebody coming to shoot me. So I think that bleeds over into this conversation of arming our teachers. It's a certain mindset. I'm not going to say it's a city or a West Coast East Coast thing, but certainly people in the Midwest, Southeast part of the country, Southwest, have a different outlook on firearms for the most part. Not all, but a lot, because you see guns around you a lot more, and you're used to it, and it doesn't even affect you. Um, it's critical that our community, and I'm going to go to the race card again because, like I said, it's my show, and I can go to as much as I want. That we become integrated in the Second Amendment um, in terms of realizing that we have access to this great document. It's a living document. It's not a static document. It's not a dead document. It's a document that our ancestors, more than anybody in this country, died for. Black folks have laid out a documented, well documented path of sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifices in many cases for our community to be here, for you and I to have these conversations and these theoretical discussions. So having a gun is something we need to embrace. And I just believe that, and I said this the other day, and I'll say it again. Imagine just for a moment if every slave coming off this ship was given a box of ammo, just one box, and a rifle that was fully functional. What do you think our life would look like right now? What do you think having the ability to protect your kids, your wives, yourselves, your property would look like? Dramatically different. And I would argue that against anybody. And I'm not like I said, I'm not this macho guy going around trying to bully people into a certain mindset. Let me do me and you do you, and we'll get along fine. But if you understand that mindset, you surely understand why that can easily be integrated into protecting our kids in the school. Those schools that are safe have good security usually nowadays, especially in the higher end some of these private schools. They're like Fort Knox. You can't even walk in without going through three or four security folks. So we need to adopt that as well. Um, Comment 2A's for everybody. It is colorblind, no doubt, no doubt. And we have to make sure that it is something that it is colorblind and that everybody can access the Second Amendment. I know I'm kind of diverting away from the conversation that we're talking about, but I think it's needed. If only a few rich folks can buy a gun, is the 2A really for everybody? If you're being priced out, if you're in a limited budget or income, like a lot of our folks in our community have, if you only have $500 to buy this used SIG or used Glock or used Canic or used Mossberg shotgun at the pawn shop, but yet in your state, to get that gun, you have to take a course, which costs another $300-400. Then you have to buy a certificate, or pay for a certificate. It costs another $200-300. And oh, by the way, you got to wait, a month or 30 days or 45 days before you get the gun. If you're like most poor people or people with a limited income, like I was raised, you're gonna say, forget the gun, man. That $400 gun turned into a $1,200 purchase, and we don't got that. No way, no how. We got $400 now, but we don't have $1,200. So one of the things that we have to do diligently as a people is to make sure the 2A community has to make sure that the folks that have these limited incomes, that have these limitations, are allowed to buy that gun uninfringed. They have the ability to go buy it, bring it home, and not have all these layers of bureaucracy that's keeping them from being able to protect themselves. I have talked to many, many parents, many single Black men and women that have kids in school, that have guns at home, and they've all told me the same thing. Down to, I mean, there's probably maybe one or two out of about 100 parents, only one or two have said that they would not use a gun to protect their family in a moment of crisis. And at school, it only gets magnified because you're talking about not only your child but hundreds of other kids that belong to other parents, and those are their babies, and those are their their concern. Mr. Mapp says, "Are risk becoming a felon by carrying anyway?" And that, Colin, you're on point tonight, man. What I have found, and I think most of you guys already know, if you're living in a rough neighborhood and you don't have the income to buy a gun legally, but yet you need a gun to protect yourself and your children, what are you going to do? Common sense says you're going to buy a gun illegally because you know that gun is going to save your life, and your life trumps the rules of the law when it comes to something like that. You're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you can survive. And unfortunately, a lot of our folks do that knowing that, hey, I don't have a choice, Philip. I've had this conversation. I don't have the money to do those things that you're talking about. So yeah, I'm carrying right now, and I'm carrying illegally, but I know one thing, I'm going to stay alive. I might get arrested, but I'd rather go in front of a courtroom and a judge and explain to him or her why I have this gun on me as opposed to be getting shot at. So that's something that we need to consider as well. Now, another comment, the May issue states that was just overthrown by SCOTUS was originally designed to prevent minorities the possibility of owning firearms. And I agree with that sentiment. I know there's some folks out there that don't believe that the original designation and purpose was to prevent our people from having arms, but it was. I mean, it's clearly, it's very, the Black Code speaks to that specifically, starting in Louisiana, I think 17 something on up. If a Black person was caught with a gun being a slave, I'm not gonna use the term slave, when one of our folks was caught with any type of weapon, and that includes a spear, a knife, a stick, they could technically be shot on the spot with no punitive charges or criminal charges being assessed to the person who shot him or her. So let's try to change that narrative. Let's try to become the hard targets of the world. My goal in the next 20 years that, when people look at our community and look at our folks, the 2A community, those are the most protected people in the country. They got the best neighborhoods in the country because they believe in protecting themselves. They believe in the Second Amendment. That's the route we need to go, and stop trying to explain ourselves and our beliefs. Explain it one time. If you don't believe that, you don't agree with that, that's your right to disagree in this country. But my people, when I say my people, the second 2A people, we're going to keep marching this way, and we're going to be maintaining our hard target stance for our families, for our companies, our institutions, our schools, our churches, and we're going to be safe. I want folks to have that mindset, they're not worried about trying to explain their perspective. At some point, it becomes useless. It becomes useless when you're sitting there talking to somebody blue in the face and they just They just don't understand why you would ever want to have a gun, period. I'm not talking about an AR. I'm not talking about a rifle. I'm just talking about a simple handgun. They don't want you to have a handgun. I refuse to have that conversation anymore. You know my perspective. You know my feelings on it. And I'm going to keep moving. Now, I am sure over the next few days, you guys are going to see the narratives on all the TV shows and all the talk shows and a million other podcasts about um, the shooter, what kind of gun he had, and what are we going to do about this onslaught of our kids. Um, but it starts in conversations like we're having right now, openly, and everyone being allowed to talk their perspective. That's what we have to do. But we have to, I think, be realistic, and this is my perspective, on protecting those children in the schools. And that might mean somebody not really being thrilled about security guards outside or inside the school, or they may not want to have their child getting wanded as they walk in, but that's okay. And they may not be thrilled about them seeing armed security outside patrolling during school hours around the building. We're not talking just one person, we're talking about multiple officers making sure that those kids stay safe. To me, it's worth the uncomfortable feeling. It's worth the not so great look like, well, that doesn't look like a real conducive area for our kids. It may not, but they're safe. They'll get used to it. Um, so let's try to do our best. Let's try to be all that we can be. I've enjoyed the conversation and I love the comments tonight. This is our first one. I really want to thank you guys for really chiming in and giving me a perspective. We have a lot more planned. We're going to have some special guests, and we're going to eventually have this on a weekly basis, 3 times a week. But we're going to start it off 1 time a week this week, and possibly next week we'll have it twice a week. But we're going to have some conversations that are going to make us think. Some of the topics for the future, we're going to talk about colorism in the Black community. And I use an example of my wife. And my wife is very, very dark. And I prefer dark-skinned women. I've always preferred beautiful chocolate Black women. I mean, that's just my thing. I tell my wife, when I wake up in the morning, when I look over in the bed, I want to see Africa. I want to see her silhouette of her body. I want to see it in her lips. I want to see it in her nose. I want to see the texture of her hair. That's what I've always wanted. And God blessed me with just what I wanted. But I also know that there are a lot of, unfortunately, Black men in this country that believe that a lighter skin hue woman is a more attractive woman. A woman with hair a certain way is a more attractive woman. And I disagree. And I think that goes to some of the socializations that we have had as men, regardless of color. And we're going to talk about that next week. And my wife and I, we get into this conversation all the time. And we kind of sit right next to each other and we look each other in the face and we say, why were you attracted to me? And I tell her why I was attracted to her. And then I reverse the question. So we'll have that conversation next week. So colorism in the Black community, our colorism in society as a whole, dating, all that good stuff. So it's going to be pretty cool. And I look forward to everybody joining in next week. And tell all your friends, like, subscribe, let them know that I'll be here running my mouth. And yes, look at the background. It's not the greatest. Let's face it. It's not the greatest. That'll soon be updated. I have some things I want to do. I'll put it that way. So don't clown me too much. This is the first podcast and trying to get my rhythm, trying to get used to some of this technology. As you guys know, I'm a dinosaur and all that good stuff. So love and appreciate all you guys. Last statement, Mr. Mapp says, will school systems in states with restrictive gun laws be able to afford the same level of protection as others? Are schools be disenfranchised communities? That's a great point. That's a great point. I don't know. But there's obviously different levels. And I think you're right on point, Mr. Mapp. Different levels of protection when you go to a school, typically in the North area versus a school in the South area, and they just have totally different budgets. I mean, one looks like a college, the other looks like a beat up area. So that's a great point. I just want to tell I love everybody. And I appreciate you guys chiming in. And as always, God bless. Be safe and respect. Try to take every day and just take a moment and be thankful for where we are in our lives. Be thankful that you can breathe, that you can eat, that you can have somebody that loves you in your life, that you are appreciative of those things. And I'm not talking about monetary things or physical things. I'm talking about be thankful that you have a wife that loves you. Be thankful that you have kids that you can hug and they love you. Be thankful that you are not physically disabled to the point where you can't even function. You might have some you might have some limitations. You might not be able to run like you used to, or even walk the way you are used to. But be thankful for what God has given you. And when you think about those things, it puts things in perspective. We are a beautiful country. We're a beautiful place. We just have to sit back sometimes and realize that you don't need to take that trip down to Cabo San Lucas or go over to Africa or Europe or Asia. You can enjoy the life just right here where you're at in your neighborhood. Take time, spoil your wife or your spouse, cook them dinner, tickle their feet, and have a good life. So that's it for tonight. I love you guys, and take care, and we'll see each other again next week at 7 o'clock. Peace. I'm out.